What if the world ended? What if you went on vacation and while you were gone, everything that you know and love burned to the ground? Well, welcome to the Nice House on the Lake. This is a horror story written by James Tynan and is currently one of the independent comic books that I'm reading massively. And if you're wondering where you are, this is the Comicstorian channel, where I take comic books, I turn them into audio dramas, and this allows you to know what's going on in the world of comics, and hopefully you'll stick around and go buy some yourself, go to your local comic book store, and support this great industry. Now today we're going to be covering the first 3 issues of the Nice House on the Lake, just to give you a taste of what's going on in this comic book. And if you enjoy it, consider picking up the rest of the issues yourself, or let me know in the comments down below, Benny, I really like this, I want more of this, because we can cover more of it here. Also, if you enjoy horror stories, don't forget to check out my new channel. Just for fun, I created a channel where my brother and I write short stories about horror stories, and we do them as audio dramas on another channel. Would love to have you a part of that project. Anyway, let's get into Nice House on the Lake, issues 1, 2, and 3. Ryan adjusts her bandage, her spear resting between her legs as the rain falls from the sky, and she tells you how it all began. It was the end of a late night in Brooklyn, another long night of drinking in bars, when you make friends with friends of friends, and it was the night that she finally met Walter. And he asked her a question. How do you think the world will end? He asked her this from across the table, and Ryan wasn't sure, pondering the question, thinking back on all of the poetry that she had read in college. She thinks about it, telling him that she doesn't think the world itself will end, that someday the world as they know it will end, but it will just give way to another type of world, where humans sit around and think about the past and how the world might end someday. What do you think? How do you think it'll end? She asked him, and he leaned back, scratching his chin. I don't know. I'm still trying to decide. But it helps to think about it, I think. He told her, and that's what happened. Time would pass and the two would text or meet up talking about the world, always coming back to the conversation of how would things end. We're now in the present, and Ryan gets up, walking back up the trail, still carrying her spear. And then it stopped. I didn't hear from him for almost 2 years until I got the email, she says. That email was an invitation, a gathering of people at a secluded lake house in the mountains, where they could relax, have some good ideas, and share some ideas. Each recipient was given an itinerary and a code name. Ryan's was the artist. It was the first day that Ryan walked up the drive, and she was greeted by Nora, also known as the writer. Nora checked her temperature while puffing on a cigarette. When Ryan passed, Nora motioned her up the path, telling her that the house is even more incredible than the scenery. Do I know anyone else there? Ryan asks. You probably know more people than I do, Nora tells her, following her up. Ryan is amazed by the house. Moving through it, she quickly meets with the other guests, all of them shocked by their surroundings. David the comedian, Molly the accountant, Veronica the scientist, Sam the reporter, Arturo the acupuncturist, Sarah the consultant, Naya the doctor, Rick the pianist. Everyone meets and talks, finding information about their lives or just admiring their surroundings. Walter finally arrives carrying 2 large bags of food and a smile. I'm glad you came. Now, who wants to test these steaks on the grill? He asks. The day quickly falls into the night, and the guests have all gathered for a party at the pool, with Walter grilling while everyone drinks and laughs. Ryan doesn't know many of the other guests, and for a moment slips away, finding herself in the shadows, as she reaches for her phone, which she hasn't done all day, and her eyes widen in shock at what she sees. The internet is ablaze with the information that has been spreading. Reports of fire in the sky over New York, people being set ablaze, their skin melting from their bodies. The destruction spreading around the world, warnings to stay indoors, to hide underground, declarations of the end, of repentance, of anger. Tears begin to fall from her eyes as she's looking at the images, the videos, and she gets up, rushing back to the party. She screams for everyone to be quiet, telling them all what she just saw. New York City is gone. There are pictures of people burning alive all over Twitter and Instagram, she tells them. Everyone begins to worry, rushing inside to find the massive TV on the wall, and all they find is an emergency warning about an attack when they turn it on. This can't be real. There must be some kind of mistake, Molly says, and people nod. Some say that they need to call their loved ones. Plans are beginning to be made, with everyone agreeing that they should pack their bags and take one of the cars and head for help. Ryan stares off in the distance before she looks at Walter. who is smiling. She remembers all of their conversations about the end of the world, and it dawns on her. I guess the conversation is over. You picked, she whispers, and everyone turns to the pair, wondering what's going on. Just tell them, don't pretend. I'm sorry, everyone, you can't leave. There's nowhere for you to leave to. No world to go back to, not in any way that matters. He tells them, and everyone gets quiet, not understanding what he's saying. This house, this lake, the beautiful woods around you, that's all that's left. 7 billion people out there are dead, or they will be dead shortly, he tells them. He explains to them that that is why he bought the house, that he is their friend, and it doesn't matter what he really is or why the end of the world was necessary, but it happened, and he arranged for this corner in the world for them. You won't have a want for anything. You have delicious food, alcohol, kayaks, boats, entertainment. You have this incredible house that I built just for you, and you have each other, but you'll never be able to leave, he says to them. Everyone stares at him in silence, and he tells them to go back outside and turn back on the music, to have fun, to drink beer. Nora turns away, seeing the fireplace poker nearby, and she grabs it. She rushes at Walter, swinging the weapon through his head. But the image of Walter begins to shift, and the poker slices right through him, with his skin and face warping and twisting around it. What the F? David shouts out, falling back as the others scream, and Nora steps back as Walter raises his hand, and her wrist begins to shift and explodes into a bloody trauma. I know you're all hurting, but in time you'll see that this was the right call. I'll be back every now and then to toast to the old world. I love you all. The strange image of Walter says, and his face reforms, and they see his smile before he disappears. It's the end of the world, and Rick sits at the piano in the forest thinking about how he knew Walter in college. One day, Walter was a little drunk and confessed to Rick that he was afraid that everyone would hate him. Rick hugged his friend, telling him that no one would hate him. And that was the truth. It seemed to everyone that Walter came into contact with that if he put in the effort, they would end up loving him. Rick gets up from the piano, pulling on his heavy coat, walking into the woods, confessing that he wanted Walter to just be there with him, to hug him, to tell him everything was going to be okay. There's a part of me that still wants that, he murmurs as he walks off. The next morning, Rick awakens to Naya standing over his bed. Do we know anything else? He asks her, and she nods as she dries her hair from the shower. We know what it's like to see someone's skin melt off. The internet is full of that. Some people are talking about taking some of the boats out, though, to see if there are any other houses on the lake. She leans down, kissing him, telling him to take a shower and meet her downstairs for breakfast. Everyone is shaken up. I think they could use us keeping our heads on straight, the best that we can, she says, and he smiles, agreeing as she walks out of the room. Rick gets up, taking a shower, drying himself in front of the fabulous view of the lake. It's nice, isn't it? Walter says from behind him. Rick's eyes widen as he turns, and Walter stands before him, his head still twisted from Nora's attack. Hi, Rick. I'm sorry. This isn't how I wanted the week to go, but if this is going to work, I'm going to need your help, Walter says as he stands there. But outside, some of the others find Ryan by the pool, looking down at the itinerary that Walter had created. She's trying to figure out how she even fits into everything, with all the others knowing each other, or Walter for over a decade, having met in high school or college. Inside, the others are having breakfast, commenting about how the bagels are very fresh, and Walter is so thoughtful. Sarah is disgusted by the talk, getting up and heading out for a cigarette. She finds Nora outside smoking away, and the two talk for a moment. Please tell me you brought a suitcase of cigarettes. At this rate, I'm going to smoke through my entire pack on day 1 of purgatory, she says in frustration, but Nora shakes her head, pointing out that if Walter thought of everything, which he seems to have, then he probably has a secret room for them that restocks when no one is looking. She points out that Walter said he created everything for them, so she believes that there are secrets for everyone that they haven't found yet. Sarah finally agrees, putting out her cigarette. So let's go see if Walter left us a big stash anywhere, she says as she motions to Nora to follow, and they begin to explore the house. But back inside, Sam rushes in, calling for everyone to follow him, and he leads them down the driveway to the strange statue that they all passed when they walked in. He tells them that he discovered it last night when walking the perimeter line of the invisible barrier around the property. Meanwhile, Sarah and Nora are wandering around the house, discovering all of the expensive things that Walter had left in the house for them, including a vast library that is filled to the ceiling with every form of comic, book, and movie that he had always talked about. Sarah moves one of the books aside, discovering a key in a lock in the wall. Oh God, is this how we find Walter's weird porn? Nora whispers as Sarah reaches out and turns the key. But back with Sam, he begins to show everyone all of the statues, telling them that when he saw it, he wanted to push it down. But the moment I made contact, I saw something. If you touch the statue, it'll show you your home, what's left of it, he whispers, tears in his eyes as he reaches out and hugs Arturo. Ryan can't help herself, gingerly stepping forward, reaching for the statue. As her hand makes contact, images of the city in flames flash before her eyes, the remains of melted people everywhere. She steps away in shock, falling to the ground. Inside, Rick is playing the piano. Naya joins him, wondering where the others are. He looks up at her, asking her if they should take what Walter told them at face value, that they might be the last people left on Earth, that they should try to continue to live, to keep the house as nice as they can, to make the most of it. And what if the others don't let us make the most of it? Naya asks him, unaware of what the others are seeing in the outside world. Then honestly, I bet Walter has a plan, Rick tells her, unaware that Sarah and Nora, meanwhile, have entered a secret room, one that they discover to be filled with guns, ammo, and explosives. Naya agrees with Rick, hugging him, telling him that she loves him. I love you too, always, Rick says, looking over her shoulder at the smiling image of Walter standing there. Meanwhile, Sam has rowed his small boat across the fiery lake, remembering Walter from college, when he called him at work, asking if he could check in on Norm and Ronnie, hang out with them, asking them to report back to see if everything was okay. You want me to spy on our friends for you? Sam had asked as he continued to work in the dark room at college, and Walter admitted that that's what he wanted, believing that Norm and Ronnie would end up together. With a sigh, Sam finally agreed. He had talked to Reggie about it later, with Reggie believing that Walter was doing this to get Sam to hang out with his friends more, a way to get everyone in the place that Walter believed they were supposed to be. Sam continues to row the boat, admitting that he wasn't sure that Walter wasn't meddling in his life, but knew that Walter seemed to take pride in it. If it wasn't true then, it sure is now, Sam admits as he looks up at the fiery sky. But it's the next morning that Arturo wakes up with Sam sitting in bed. Are you okay, he asks. But Sam just continued to stare forward. No, he admits, and they head downstairs, watching as everyone begins to go about their day. Naya begins to make breakfast and everyone is acting normal, with Rick even suggesting that they all head out in a boat and enjoy the morning. What are you talking about? Sam demands. And Rick tells them that some of them have decided to try and make the best of the day, believing that it'll help them keep a level head. You want to drink beers on a boat and watch Disney movies? Sam asks in anger, and he finally just turns, storming away, unable to believe what they're talking about. He decides to head down the driveway, eventually reaching the invisible barrier that keeps them trapped, and at the edge he begins to walk the line, trying to figure out how far he can go. Walter watches him from the shadows of the trees, his face shifting. After a short time, Sam finally comes to a corner intrigued, and he heads back to the house. He gathers up some basic survival supplies and tells Arturo that he's going to see how far he can go in the morning. Arturo tries to talk him out of it, suggesting that he stay for the morning and relax with his friends, but Sam refuses, angry that Arturo would even suggest such a thing. Let me come with you, Arturo finally says, but Sam shakes his head, heading out the door. No, you stay. You relax, he says sharply, and the day passes with Sam finding more of the statues and a long stairway. The stairs lead up to a platform with a strange black house on top, surrounded by even more statues. The day continues as Sam begins to take pictures of the statues and the house, noticing a mural on the ground that seems to represent the two houses in the lake. Night begins to fall and he finally walks up to the strange black house, beginning to shout for Walter. Walter, are you in there? He asks, becoming angry, demanding to know why Walter thought that they could live like this. Why would he leave these strange markers? And he collapses to the ground, crying. This is all a part of it, isn't it? You knew that we'd lose it if there wasn't something to understand, something to solve. So you have us do these little riddles that distract us from the cage you put us in. He realizes and he stands up shouting again. Well, I'm not playing your games. He bellows, pointing the flare gun that he brought with him and firing it into the sky. The red light glowing before falling, and Sam turns and walks away, unaware that Walter is watching him from the shadows. Walter turns back to the black house, and he can see through the glass walls. He smiles at Reggie as the man beats against the glass. Sam, can you hear me? It's Reg, I'm right here, can you hear me? Reggie is screaming. And there you have it, the first part of Nice House on the Lake. Now, this story is currently up to issue 10, so you can go ahead and pick it up and read ahead. But if you want more of it, give this video a like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and let me know. Benny, this was incredible. I want to know what's going to happen, because trust me, it gets even better. Don't forget to go to our Patreon or YouTube memberships if you want to support us further and get early access, and I'll see you next time right here.